It is 8:30. We'll call this morning's meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Item number 3 on the agenda is an invitation for a citizen to schedule time on the commission agenda for an item not listed, and we did not have anyone sign in this morning. So moving on to item number 4, approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, changes, modifications? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 5, consent agenda items. We have the approval of the minutes, approval of the travel requests, approval of personnel action notices, approval of cellular authorizations, and approval of the human services report. Would there be a motion to approve?
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Pierce. Aye. Bartley.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 6 is the routine business. 6A is the approval of the claims. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Bartley.
Aye.
Jensen.
Aye.
Krogman.
Aye.
Pierce. Aye. Boersma.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item 6B is department head reports, and we'll start with the highway department. Brian?
Good morning.
Good.
Sure, the people over by Sinai noticed that we're working on the asphalt project. The overlay was completed on 9/13 last week. Striping, that was completed yesterday. That was part of the project. Tomorrow, we're gonna start working on placing the shoulder material, and there's gonna be some temporary delays out there, just to forewarn some folks. We demonstrated a machine from DMI last week. You guys can see that there. County Road 6 was closed down last week also to begin the preservation work on that structure south of Bruce. Attended the county convention. Mowers have been out running. I know I've gotten a few comments from commissioners on this, but wanted to point out to you guys that we are doing some shared equipment with the city parks. We did some work with our boom mower in areas they couldn't reach along some bike trails and roads, and they're allowing us to use their skid steer mounted mower, and that's allowing us to get this work done. Also today, or next week, they're going to start on the crossbucks in Elkton. And other than that, we've been working on laying some gravel over by Elkton and now up north of Bushnell. And that's what we've been busy doing.
Any questions for Brian? Nope.
Also, in front of you, we did get the project closeout. Did you get that, Brian?
Yes. For the Bruce
Some-
Bridge.
Just that information is in front of you this morning.
Which bridge? This is Bruce Bridge.
Correct.
Thanks, Brian. We'll do BCOAC.
Morning, how are you guys? Attendance, I made a mistake and put June in the report that you guys have, but this is actually from July 19th. The gun range, we had 386, archery range, we had 215, and then we've had 90 events happen out there. With the road closure on 22nd Avenue and 20th Street, it's kind of a chore to get out to the building. A lot of people thought we were actually closed due to this, but hopefully we got the word out and let everybody know that we're still open, normal hours. We're doing something fun again this year with our 3D targets, the shapes of the deers and all that kind of stuff. Half the archery range, we're filling that full. On Thursdays, college kids come back. They all got hunting license, so we got quite a few of them in there, so that's nice to see, just switching it up a little bit. Joad has started their fall session. I think they got around 20 kids again this year. Fall session's a little bit smaller. Hopefully they get a few more in the spring and winter. We are going to do a gun league. The participants in the gun league that we do in the winter wanted another one, so we're going to try to do a smaller one for the fall. Try to figure out a fun target and see if we can get a few more people into the building. August Shooting Sports Month, it went very well. We had a lot of positive feedback. There's a few things we need to tweak. A couple of the events had lower attendance, so maybe we'll add a few things to that, but something to look forward to next year. The 3-range shoot, there was a lot of positive feedback with that, with the Brookings Gun Club, and then Beacon Hill. We already scheduled another one. Everybody enjoyed that. Our interns with Game Fish and Parks, they have started for the year. They started on September 1st, and that's kind of a joint effort between the city. So they spend half their time at our building and then half the time in the Dakota Nature Park, the Larson Nature Center. But they've done 2 archery events for college kids at our facility, and they've had 60 total participants. So that's nice to see. They also brought some gear that they're allowing us to use as well. They're hoping to do a few more things this fall, and then hopefully we add a few more things in the spring. So just start slow and we'll grow with that, hopefully. Still waiting on the decoy trailer. I mentioned that last commission meeting. A gal had donated a bunch of decoys down to the outdoor campus in Sioux Falls, so they're working on purchasing a trailer. I have heard it's been purchased, but they're just going to wrap it with some logos, and then that should be down at our building, so we can rent that out for free to people. Train. It was a busy summer. We had a lot of HVAC issues with the high temps. We had a compressor go out, and then our 2 compressors that weren't working properly, and then a fan motor in the archery range. So there will be a rather large bill probably for next commission meeting, just so you guys are aware. We had just a few maintenance things. We had all the carpets cleaned again, and then we're working on cleaning the vinyl, or stripping and then waxing the vinyl tile floor. The furniture for our remodel in the viewing room finally showed up. Now we're just waiting for the construction crew to come out, the contractor to put it together, and then hopefully wrap that up here soon. And then I did start the High Performance Leadership Academy through NACO last week, and just want to say thanks for allowing me to do that. That's all I had. If you guys had any questions for me?
Questions for Dustin?
Thanks.
Thank you. Weed and Pest, Misty?
Good morning.
Good morning.
It's been a little while. I figured I better come and just to let you know, finally got all equipment up and running again, so that's a positive. We're 3/4 done with county roads. Now, depending on wind, we do need the northerly wind, and it's starting to cool down, so that's in our favor. So 3/4 of the county roads done, and then also the townships are finished. As of 3 o'clock today, we should be completely done with townships. We will drive through townships just to, excuse me, just to check and see if we've missed any spots or if we sprayed early and ahead of beans need to be sprayed now that the beans are turning and clean up. Any questions for me?
No.
Thanks.
Thanks, Misty.
Morning.
Hey, just quick with the detention center, some stats and so forth. We have 31 inmates in there. None from Lake County right now. We have 6 from Moody County. We're also starting to look at some other contracts. You know, we're still not 100% ready to go in phase 2. There's still some stuff on the punch list and things like that, and some policies that we need to for the 2 safe rooms and those types of things, but we're moving on with that. But we're starting to look at the getting into the U.S. Marshal Service contract to see what that entails, and also the tribal out of Flandria. I was contacted a while back from the deputy U.S. attorney, and they would like to contract with us. They don't have a lot of inmates, maybe 4 or 5 at some, but they would like to. They're struggling with housing right now, so we look at that too and discuss and see what that's about. And I'll bring back more information. Last Thursday night, I attended the Human Rights Commission meeting. I have a deputy assigned to that as the Sheriff's Office liaison, Deputy Gebbers, but I keep her busy with transports and that, and this meeting's at 5:30, and so I went last week and so forth. And then I invited to the next meeting that I would host at the Sheriff's Office on October 20th, and then do a tour of the jail for the Human Rights Commission, so otherwise. We're continuing to, my investigators are busy with some investigations and stuff, and I can't really tell you a lot because it's a secret, so. But they're digging into a couple what I feel is high priority type investigations in my department. Also, what was I going to say? I was looking at my strategic plan that we developed back in 2015, and I was wondering if there's are we going to talk about another, I was looking at that, and a lot of the goals I had in that strategic plans has been met, and so I don't know has there been any talk about another strategic plan that you want us department heads to do at this point or anything? That's okay with me. Because we're always planning for the future anyway when it comes to technology and that type of stuff. So, but a lot of the goals that I had for that 5-year plan, the detention center, the adding of a security deputy in the courts, adding more staff and things like that. So a lot of those goals are what I thought should be for the future has been accomplished. So kind of pleased with that. Some more stats. I'm kind of going to it in here. 24/7, that program's increased up to 117 individuals. 24/7 area is working good. Also, we have the portable fingerprint machine up there that seems to be working good, and staff is adapting well to what we're doing in the 24/7 area. Other than that, unless you have some questions, speeding complaints, those things, school resource officer, on page 2, I probably will change some of the things because I go from calendar year on the Brookings School Resource Officer activity, and maybe I need to go by school year, the 9 months, and not go by the year. For August, for instance, for Sioux Valley, the School Resource Officer for August and September had 17 contacts. Now, and then Elkton had 12 and White had 12. And those contacts are something that the officer had to take some type of action. A lot of it is truancy. I think one school, he was 4 days and someone was truant, and he has to go get them and bring them to school and that type of stuff. So a lot of these are truancy. Some school disruption, not a lot, but so he fairly stays busy. He's also the community policing deputy also. During the summer, when there's not school, as you remember, I was able to get that grant, add an officer. I really didn't have to take anybody out of the patrol. I was able to leave the patrol and take, so I used the school resource officer, multitasks the community-oriented police officer too, so he can do both. So that way I didn't have to take anybody out of patrol. So anyway, any questions?
Commissioner Pierce.
I was at a BEDC meeting last week, I think, and the new police chief spoke. And he talked a little bit about his plans for interrelationship with your office and SDSU and the highway department, and talked some about maybe you guys might start getting together monthly for breakfast or lunch or something. How is all that going?
Well, we haven't got together yet, because I think I'm supposed to buy, see, so I'm saving my money. No, he's getting his feet wet. Mm-hmm. And so I communicated with the university police chief, and we're ready to go when he's ready, so that's something for the future here, but he's getting his feet wet over there and stuff, so, and we'll start getting together, yeah. Yeah, I got high hopes.
Great.
I think he's full of energy, and I think he'll do good, so. But that's one of the goals, yeah. When we did the walkabout with Police Chief Drake, he was really for getting along and working together and being a team. So I'm all for that. So.
And he had some, for those of you that maybe haven't met him yet, he has some really excellent experience in an active shooting situation and talked about the difference, how we would handle things versus what had happened down in Texas. It was
Yeah.
very interesting.
Well, Texas did it, well, in my opinion, did it all wrong.
Right.
So, yeah.
Commissioner Jensen?
Marty, what time of year does your contracts come due with the smaller town?
At the end of the year.
End of the year, has there been any talk to increase hours in those smaller towns
No,
that are
no.
that are growing?
No, and I've been visiting with the mayors and there hasn't been any talk about increasing. So
Other questions for Marty?
I think a lot of it has to depend on what's going on in those communities too. You know, so far with the amount of hours that we're staying, yeah, I think we're doing fine. I don't hear any concerns that there's a lack of patrol or a lack of what's going on in the little towns. I was just at Volga at their last meeting and so forth, and we talked about some other things. But, you know, my biggest concern over at Volga right now is the study on 14, which I contacted the state, and they're going to do another study because they said when they did the study, there wasn't a lot of pedestrian traffic at the time of that study. So now they're going to do it, but they didn't do it very long, you know, so now they're going to put cameras back up again to study pedestrian traffic and on 14. That's one of my concerns right now is that. But I have deputies trying to watch that area and try to control speeding. They move pretty fast through that area, so. But the mayor of White is good to work with. He'll call me if there's an issue over there. We try to handle it. Had a hit and run over there on some sign damage, but the deputy was able to catch up found out who it was and stuff. So they're pretty good about letting me know their concerns in those areas, so.
Great. Anything else for Marty?
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah.
Community Development and Emergency Management, Bob?
Good morning. We had September the 8th, and we are going to apply for Department of Health grant. We just, at that meeting, we're not going to just do a blanket request. We're going to figure out what we need and try to apply, narrow it down. And at the next commission meeting, we'll let you know what we applied for. But chances are we'll have to fill out all the paperwork before the next commission meeting. I attended the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners meeting, and then from there I moved on to the South Dakota Emergency Management Association meeting. It's National Preparedness Month, so I went on KBRK a couple times to talk about that. Yesterday we had the Brookings County Diversion meeting. We have met with everyone except for 2 landowners now. Of course, the contractors, Banners Associate, and they're getting close to wrapping that up and to get us a meeting, to get us a packet or a good information. It's going to be more than just a sheet. It's going to be a booklet on what the findings are of that. And as soon as Banners gets it to me, I'll send it to the Drainage Committee, and then we'll schedule a drainage meeting and discuss. And then at the county commission meeting, you guys can decide which way to keep proceeding on that. Today we're supposed to be on the radio. We'll have to see. I got Ray Lynn. If it's a go, she'll be on the radio at 9:30. I got to be up here. The 22nd, we've got a FEMA follow-up meeting, and a question came up at the last FEMA meeting was on one of the county highway buildings that got destroyed, if it was going to be rebuilt or not. And just be aware when we have that FEMA follow-up meeting, right now, from what I understand, we do not know if that building is going to be rebuilt in the place it's in now. Is that correct?
I'd say that's pretty likely.
Building talk.
The white building that got blown apart
The
with
one
the
that was
sheriff's
destroyed?
car, had the sheriff's cars and stuff by it.
In town. I think part of the conversation has been whether or not the kind of strategic plan for the highway shop area is something that can happen in the relatively near future, because that may not be the same location that we would want a building like that. I
And,
think
and that's fine. We just have to be honest with FEMA and tell them if we're not going to reconstruct the building right now, we're not going to reconstruct the building right now. I don't think it's going to be, as far as money recouping, I don't think it's going to be that big a difference because all they're going to do is help us with the insurance, the deductibles that we have to pay. So it's not like we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars for not rebuilding. We just need to answer. I want to answer as truthfully as we can. So that's what we'll tell them. We got a full-scale exercise near Volga on Monday, be after work time, 5:30 or so. And then we also got an event, the United Way, and a whole bunch of different organizations have got a big event on September 26th out at the Dakota Nature Park. We're actually going to join with them, and that's going to be our county-wide national preparedness event. We got this big stuffed turtle called Tommy the Turtle coming, and we ordered 200 books we're going to pass out to children. But when we say 200 books, that's each child will be given a bag that's got 4 preparedness books in it. One for fire, flooding, blizzards, tornadoes, and flooding. So 4 different books. And that's in conjunction with the United Way. They approached my office and asked about it, and I figured that was the best way to do it. We got a joint jurisdiction organization, joint jurisdiction area ordinance public meeting on October the 4th. I believe it's 7 o'clock. It should be published in the papers with our minimum meeting dates. It's going to be after the city's planning meeting and just before our county planning meeting. We're going to have a joint public meeting to go over, and hopefully we can, at this meeting, get recommendations that we can send to the county commission on how to go forward. I took up a Stop the Bleed kit to Dewbrook Schools up in White. They sent the question out if we had any additional Stop the Bleed kits, that one of their schools that they deal with have lost their kit, so we got another. You may not remember, but probably 3 or 4 years ago, the state of South Dakota issued Stop the Bleed kits to all the schools. So we took them up a Stop the Bleed kit, and big issues coming up is election signs in the right-of-way. Now, I don't care about election signs. Anywhere in the county, you want to put an election sign, do it, as long as it's not in the right-of-way. A right-of-way is not the place for election signs. You put them on private property, and you've got no problem, whatever they say. You know, vote for whoever you want to vote for. I'm going to vote for whoever I want to vote for. But when you start to put them in the right-of-way, and if you see a sign missing, you might contact my office. We'll pick them up. I don't care if it's, if we catch them in the right-of-way, we retrieve the sign, we bring them back. If you want your sign, all you have to do is call us, and we'll give you a sign back to you. And we'll try to contact whoever signs we end up with. It's typically not a big issue, and we just want to give people a chance not to put them in the right-of-way. And if the right-of-way is the part from the middle of the road to typically the fence line, so we're talking about when they say public right-of-way, that's what we're referring to. No sign on private property will ever be touched by anybody in my office. And other than that, that's all I have. Any questions?
Commissioner Pierce.
The joint jurisdiction ordinance meeting, was the issue on the boundaries resolved? What's being proposed at the public hearing? The purpose of the meeting is,
That's the purpose of the meeting jointly, so we hopefully come up with a solution to move that forward with the entire ordinance.
okay, and so that'll be decided at the public meeting.
Hopefully.
Thank you.
I second that, hopefully. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll move on to item C, the finance officer's report. Lori, anything from your office?
Okay, as you might have noticed when you came in this morning, we're preparing for the absentee voting. The drapes are going up, and that starts this Thursday. As a reminder, you need your photo ID, and also there's no election campaign type material that can be worn or on your vehicle starting Thursday. I did attend the Fall Convention in Pierre last week, took in several presentations and workshops for both the auditor and treasurer side, so that was a fun and very informative event. Yesterday, I attended the Republican Noon Luncheon. The guest speaker was Auditor Richard Sadgas from the state, and so it was kind of interesting to hear the division of duties and what the auditor's office does on the statewide level versus what we do at the county level. So that was really interesting. And then number 4, I had sent out some information earlier last week or this week for taxes that are not purchased at the tax sale. Normally, the county will sit on these properties for the 3 to 6 year time frame that is required of anyone purchasing tax deeds, certificates, before something is done. However, occasionally there are properties that, due to something on that parcel, be it something hazardous, a large dollar amount to destroy, some counties choose not to take tax deed on a property. We have come across that interest, or that instant, where I think it probably in the best interest of the county to technically sit on these taxes and not begin tax deed proceedings. What would happen is the taxes just continue to accrue on that property until a time when the owner needs to or is forced to pay taxes. I do know the city of Brookings has been looking at their drainage pond issues, talking about what they want to do going forward with those. And so I guess what I'm asking from the commission, I need something from you directing me to refrain from taking tax deed on properties that I feel might be a liability for the county to take. Of course, I think that in each instant where this may happen, I think information on that property needs to be brought to the board for you to look at individually each instant and decide, but I need something in the minutes to direct me that way, especially for audit. I'll need that at audit time. So that is my question for you today. Is how you'd like me to proceed.
So by consensus, is the agreement of the commission that perhaps this is a one-by-one instance that we'd want to take a look at in each separate taxation instance?
I think so. Yes.
Do we have consensus on that fact, that that's what we would like to see from Lori?
I think what she's saying, though, am I understanding this right? We would put it on as an action item to have a motion on that in the
Sure.
future. Yeah.
At a future
Yep.
meeting? Yep.
Yep.
But that's how everybody would like to see that happen? Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll add that to a future agenda.
I will have it for you next time.
Perfect.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Great. Thank you. And then the other item on there is our be it noted items, the auditor payroll and additives totals, the highway expenditures report, and the register of deeds statement of fees collected are all included in that packet. We do have a scheduled 9 o'clock agenda item. It is within 12 seconds of 9 o'clock. So the public hearing and approval of the fiscal year 2023 annual budget is our 9 a.m. agenda item. On that item, the action would be to approve the amendments. And so they are listed as that provisional budget change. I think, Stacy, do we want to kind of quick walk through these before we take any action?
Yes, so due to utilities and growth, some numbers, and those always change from the time that we initially create that provisional budget. So for that in the general fund, 101,311, the tax levy amount, or the amount of taxes collected for general fund, went from $13,839,347 to $840,024. So it was a change of $677. To offset that, we just did some other miscellaneous revenue, 101,369 from 20,000 down to 19,323 to offset that. That was that for the general fund. And then in the building fund, the amount of taxes collected changed, again, due to utilities and growth. So in 301,311, from $357,281 to $357,299, $18 changes all there. And again, we offset that with some revenue bank franchise. We just reduced that from in 301,335 from 7,500 to 7,482. So we really have a net change of 0 to the budget, the overall budget that was presented. The other change was the levy itself. The general fund levy went to, due to utilities, went from $4.027 to 3.911, so a reduction of 0.116 to the levy. And then the county building fund levy, again, due to that utilities, went from 0.104 down to 0.101, so just 0.003 change there. The jail expansion levy went from 0.149 to 0.145, just a change of 0.004. So overall, we went from $4.28 down to $4.157, so a reduction of 0.123.
So less 12.3 cents per thousand is not a bad levy change.
Yes.
I'd like to see that. So based on those presented provisional budget changes, would there be a motion to approve the amendments?
Second.
Perfect. We will, with the motion on the floor, we will open the public hearing for any comments. Any proponents speak to those budget changes? Any proponents? Any opponents? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. Any further comments from commissioners?
Just one, I appreciate all the work on this budget. I think that we've kept everything in line, and we've done well with our budget for the last 5 years that I've been on the commission, and I just appreciate all the hard work that you guys put into it. Thank you.
Anything else? Great. Hearing none. Call the roll, please.
Jensen?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We also need action to approve Resolution 22-46, adoption of the fiscal year 2023 annual budget for Brookings County, South Dakota. So with that, you've got all these pieces.
One thing to note too on this resolution, I believe Jenna has the correct version of it. The levy changes on that show here aren't
The ones we just discussed.
aren't the ones we just discussed, but Jenna has the correct copy of that resolution for signatures. So these dollar changes will reflect these new
Perfect.
two amounts in the resolution.
Would we have a motion to approve that resolution as amended?
Move.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley? Jensen?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Super. We will move on to regular business item 8A, action to approve resolution 22-47, a plat of lots 1A and 1B, block 2, Telcamp second edition in the southwest quarter, or the southeast quarter, excuse me, of the southeast quarter of section 13, township 110 north, range 50 west of the 5th prime meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion approved.
Any discussion? No comments? Super. Call the roll, please.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Item B, action to approve resolution number 22-48, a resolution to continue support for the First District Association of Local Governments during fiscal year 2023, running from October 1, 2022 to September 30 of 2023. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion?
this dollar amount is included in your FY 2023 budget.
There's no further discussion. Call the roll, please.
Bartley?
Aye.
Jensen?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item C, action to rescind Resolution 22-36, a plat of Lot 47A of the first edition of Lake Ponset Heights subdivision in Lot 2, Section 5, Township 112 North, Range 52 West of the 5th Prime Meridian, Brookings County, South Dakota, due to the applicant/owner not filing the plat. Would there be a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
As stated, the applicant decided not to file the plat, so we wanted to go this route to make sure everything was documented.
Sounds great. Any further discussion by the commission? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Jensen?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Bartley?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Item D, action to approve agreement 22-86, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Brookings Dual Rural Water System in Alton Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
This line crosses 34 for a new house. I was out and looked at it yesterday.
Great. No concerns, Brian?
Nope.
Perfect. Hearing no further comments, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item E, action to approve agreement 22-87, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Valley Telecommunications Co-op in Madera, Brookings, and Volga Townships. Would there be a motion to approve?
Second.
Any comments?
Been working with Valley here for quite a bit. If Stacy, you could scroll down, just to give you guys a little, that's good right there. Just to let you guys know, we aren't approving anything that's located within Moody County. That's outlined in this, drawing here, along with, once we cross, County Road 16, or 12 north of, 216th Street, on County Road 19, none of that will be approved by you guys as a board, as it's not under our jurisdiction. It's just for reference on where that project is going. So that fiber is going to run from South 77 along Brookings County 20 to the west, up County Road 19, crossing under 16 or 12, 16, and 7. That is all you guys are approving. None of the lines that are shown in the township are intended to be approved by you guys, and I made that clear to them, because in the past we've had issues where they've inferred that we've given them the permit to install them utilities on the township. The direction was to them is to contact the townships to remedy any of those issues, because there were utilities damaged in the past, and those utilities have attempted to come back to Brookings County. So I wanted to make sure you guys were aware we are only approving what is under our county right-of-way.
Sounds good. Any questions or comments by the commission? Right. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item F, action to approve agreement number 22-88, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy in Trenton Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments on this one?
This is crossing under Brookings County Road 23, or the road that goes through Volga south of town to feed a farmstead.
Any questions or concerns by the commissioners? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item G, action to approve agreement 22-89, an application for occupancy of right-of-way of county highways made by Sioux Valley Energy in Sinai Township. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments?
This will be replacing overhead power, so it'll be running along and under County Road 12 to provide a farmstead.
Any questions or concerns by the commission? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item H, action to approve agreement number 22-90, an amended Brookings City and County Government Center lawn care and snow removal agreement. Is there a motion to approve?
So
Move approval. Second.
Great. Any comments or questions on this one? Commissioner Pierce?
I have some questions on this. What is the definition of what they do at the courthouse? Does that include the sheriff's office? And does that include the new beds that are around the detention center?
Yes, that would include, they've done those sidewalks all the way around the whole, and that whole block.
So where we have, and we've got the landscaping, the weeding stuff in there, they will keep those beds weeded as part of this agreement?
I don't know that that got added to this agreement.
I think that's something we need to have a conversation about.
I can visit with Austin about that and see if it's something that they would add on as part of this agreement.
Because I think we want that whole block taken care of, and I did not read this as saying that they were going to do that. They would do it on other parts of the courthouse where we've got beds, but not necessarily along the detention center, and we've got those long areas, so those weren't included in there. And then I would like you to have a conversation when you talk to Austin. We have places over at the courthouse that need to be reseeded for the grass. Could not reseeding bare spots be included as part of this contract so that we get that taken care of?
And I know he and I've had that conversation, and I believe he was going to take care of that, but I'll visit with him again about it.
And then my third question is, the 1921 building, are we just talking about mowing the boulevards around the parking lot? What is it that we're paying for over there?
That's snow removal along those sidewalks as well, because that parking lot, the parking lot itself is not our responsibility, but the sidewalks are still our responsibility, along with upkeep of some of those landscaped areas. There's a few areas there that I think they take a look at too and maintain.
So how does the snow removal happen on the sidewalk in front of the parking lot that's on the east side of the sheriff's office? Who does that sidewalk?
That would be through this contract.
Okay, and it doesn't really say that. So in that little parking lot there where all the sheriff's office employees park?
That part.
Yeah. How does that get plowed and who does that sidewalk?
Do you know who's been handling that, Marty?
So would we like additional clarity on those items before we proceed with action?
I think so.
So that would be the landscape and planting beds on the north and east sides of the sheriff's department, correct? Or the
west.
jail and the west. Reseeding, and then making sure that the east lot sidewalk across from the sheriff's office is in this document. Would those be the three?
I'm just not real clear on that center courtyard area. Who keeps that up then? Do they keep that up? Because that would be the south side of the detention center.
Sure.
So maybe all
All
four
the way
sides of
around
yeah.
the detention center. Commissioner Jensen?
I guess I got a question. The highway department just takes care of the small parking lot to the east across the street? No other areas?
They push snow up, they push it into that lot, and when it gets too full, that's when we come clear it out. We don't go down there every time.
That's what I was
Because
wondering. If
they're
you're just making a
moving the-
trip up to do that small lot, we just will have Razor's Edge do that.
But they gotta have a place to put the snow, so they put
Okay.
it there, and then when it gets too full, we come and haul it out.
All right.
So that's the designated stockpile location for that area? Okay.
All right.
Will there be some conversation about the snow removal and not putting on those 3 small hawthorns that are, they're the new trees, I think maybe.
Yeah.
I think their area is bigger than what it was, but I'm not sure on that.
Yep.
So, given those requested changes, would there be a motion to table until the next meeting?
So move.
Would there be a second? Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we have a scheduled 9:15. So we have Dan McCauley from Habitat for Humanity coming to chat with us about the commission projects funding request. Dan, you want to come forward?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for the time. Appreciate
Yeah.
it. I noted in the minutes from your last conversation about this, a question about where we were cash-wise. I did bring our year-end financials. These are unaudited, but if you would like them, they are here.
Okay. Were there specific questions from the commissioners that you would like Dan to speak to kind of get us started?
I think, Dan, one of the questions we had when we were looking at your first request was, you know, I don't know if you saw what the priorities we were gonna kind of use for this money, and you kind of saw where we invested the money was on projects that could, you know, last a long time, not used on operating expenses, but an investment on long-term and tangible projects.
Sure.
And so when we had your request, we didn't see that
Sure.
as a tangible project that you have going on in that stuff. So I guess, could you give us a little bit of update of what your thoughts were and what you would be asking for and what you're going to do if we decide to invest in it?
Of course. So I define housing as basic infrastructure. And so the housing that we built in 95, 96 is still in service. It's not serving a Habitat family anymore, but it is still standing there on Thunder Pass sheltering a family. We finance all of our projects for 25 years so that our expectation is that they would certainly last longer than 20. In addition to the general housing construction projects that we do throughout the county, some of those require the extension of water line, as we're going to have to do out at the corner of Hawaii and Western Avenue South. We made a significant investment in streets and sewers and curb and gutter in the River Run development, about $1 million. In fact, exactly $1 million was spent on the purchase of that land and its development. So the traditionally defined infrastructure, we often rely on the developer from whom we are purchasing the property for that, but we have had instances where we have to go in and do that ourselves. And then a less traditional definition of infrastructure is, of course, sheltering families, which I think has come up as a top priority on every survey from the city, the county, and the Economic Development Corporation.
So that project on Western specifically, Dan, you want to just talk about how many lots are in that
Sure.
specific area so that we've got an idea of kind of the magnitude of impact?
Right. So this is an existing development, and when it was built out, all of the lots except the one that we own had water service. And so this is one lot. It's 130 by 150 at the corner of Western Avenue South and Hawaii Avenue that is unserved by a water line. That project, just simply the way that we do mortgages and things, we're going to be upside down on that project as we are on several projects. But that one, I think the bid is $32,000 to bring the water line from where it ends on the east side of the lot to our east, down to our lot. We're going to begin work on that just as soon as we can. I think the excavator is there. But we need to pull that lot down and pull that water line down. And so it's just going to serve one additional lot because everything else in the development was served by water and has been built.
And then the other areas around Brookings and surrounding communities, whether Volga, Aurora, or wherever, where else are we seeing developments, and roughly how many projects in the next calendar year are you guys looking at?
We have, for a long time, we were building in Aurora because lot prices were significantly more advantageous. We have one additional lot in Aurora that we have assigned to a family. We have purchased a governor's home for that lot. That governor's home project has been delayed now 3 times. We're hoping it'll get here before the ground is frozen solid. But so we'll have that one lot left in Aurora. And then because of the transformative gift that we got 2 years ago to make the River Run development possible, we'll be building there and in the Timberline addition for the next several years. And then we will again be looking to purchase land. We have very few requests from families to live outside the Brookings School District. And so we don't actively look for land in some of our outlying communities. Although, should that be a request or a need, we would do that.
Other questions by the commission?
As we look at your request amount, can you definitively assign any of those funds to these particular projects you have under contract at this point, like your water extension?
Absolutely. So again, that project is going to be upside down for us. We'll get less in mortgage revenue than it's going to cost us to build it. And so these funds would use to backfill that project, and it would help us fund some of the smaller repair renovation programs that we do out in the county that are necessary, but the family doesn't have means to pay. For example, we're currently rebuilding an access to a house that probably ought not be saved, but that's where the homeowner lives, and he's housebound, but he can't get in and out, and nor can his caretakers. We're rebuilding the access on that house. There's not a repayment mechanism in place there. We're simply doing it because it needs to be done, and it's a family served. That's not a lot of money. It's $3,000 or so. But those kinds of projects, we get called on with some regularity to do when there's a need such as this. So these funds would be used to support that program, but primarily they would be invested into backfilling the project at Western and Hawaii and doing some, they'd get spread out into another project because I don't think that one's going to require a complete $200,000.
I guess I would look at wanting to fund the projects that are infrastructure type projects for our special funds from the commission, rather than a blanket, here's X number of dollars, spend it all you'd like. We'd like to know that it went for infrastructure. So I'm wondering if we can have this proposal brought back to us specifically for an infrastructure project like the water extension or the purchase of a lot or those types of things that obviously pays down your mortgage expenses, but maybe then you have funds for the other $3,000 remodel, so to speak. So we would like to stay, or at least I would like to stay anyway, with infrastructure type projects for you. And it may be 2 or 3 requests over the next year or 2 or 3.
Okay.
Because we'll have that fund for a while until it's expended. A lot of requests for it. So can that be done? Can you give us some exact dollar figures in the next 6 months, 3 months?
Absolutely. So what if I hear what you're looking for is you're looking for specific land purchase requests and where we would need to do hard dollar costs to extend streets, water lines, that kind of stuff.
Well, that would be my preference versus here's a whole bunch of money, go spend it. We'd like it to be focused on things that would develop housing, not necessarily rehab housing.
Sure.
Commissioner Grubman.
Yeah, I think piggybacking off of here, and maybe we could do it this way. Maybe you ask for 200,000. Maybe we give you 50,000 today. That helps backfill,
Sure,
or cover some expenses, and in the coming months, years, project comes up, like Commissioner Bartley just said. I agree with him. I think, he's spot on that, that you obviously have a need right now with some stuff, so maybe we can get you those funds now. But then down the road, if you have other projects that come in that you can put for infrastructure, that you need some stuff that you'll be upside down like you were on this one, that will benefit. And I think what we're looking for is benefit of the whole public, not just maybe one person
Sure.
or one family. Okay,
Sure.
that's kind of, I think, where we've kind of come through there. So we not necessarily want to use this for just a mortgage for one family. We want to
course.
use it for infrastructure that will last there a long time. And so maybe when that family does move out, another person moves in, they receive that benefit also of the water. So
Sure.
I don't know if you'd be okay with that, but I'd, I guess, make an amendment to give you 50,000 today, and then move forward with anything else down the road.
I'll second that amendment, motion.
We don't have a motion on the
We haven't,
table.
we haven't
Nope.
done anything yet. Okay,
Okay.
so you'd have to
I'd
make a motion to begin with, yeah.
Make a motion to invest 50,000 in Habitat.
Second.
Super. Any further discussion on that? I think the general consensus is that as we start looking at the larger scale development pieces, I think everybody here wants to make sure that we're part of the kind of larger development pieces and
Sure.
excited to partner in that way. So
Absolutely.
hearing no further comments, is there any further discussion? None? I think we have to call the roll on that, yeah?
I'm not sure exactly what the motion is.
Jenna, would you read back what you have?
This is what I've heard from Bartley, is motion by Krogman, seconded by Bartley, to approve a funding request of $50,000.
Yeah, that's what I.
You want to make specific for use or for, the,
Well, I think
for
the-
his
I think the
water or?
use- Well, I think they've already spent the money. I think it reimburses them for money that they've already spent in that, and that's my thought of moving forward. And obviously, there's a few extra dollars in there, but to keep it round numbers, I'm sure you can find something for those. So.
Okay. Hearing no further comments, Jenna, will you call the roll, please?
Krogman,
Aye.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Boersma,
Aye.
motion carries.
Great.
Just a quick comment, if I
Yeah.
might. Dan, I think what we would look for in the future is that 50,000, as Commissioner Kochman said, there may be a few extra dollars in there. Maybe you could create a budget line that says, this is the commission's funding, here's how we spent it, and here's what's left, and we've got a really good accounting for the public of how we spent the money and how you spent it.
You would not be the first funder to ask for such a thing.
I'm sure not.
And let me just say we are humbled by your support. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
No.
All right. See where we're at. Our next one is at 9:30. I think because it's not an advertised public hearing, we can start since you guys are available if that works. So our 9:30 scheduled agenda item is Scott Stufen and the Elkton Ambulance Commission project funding request. So have you guys just come on forward and introduce yourselves.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. My name's Scott Stufen. I'm the Director of the Elkton Ambulance, and this is Aaron Sherman, who's my Assistant Director. And what we are looking for is some funding for a new ambulance for our community and the people we serve in Elkton.
Gentlemen, can I have you pull those microphones nice and close so that the listening public can hear? Thank you.
Sorry about that. What we're looking for is some funding for a new ambulance so we can serve the community of Elkton and the surrounding areas. The truck we have right now is 21 years old. Things are breaking down and they're obsolete. Trying to get parts for it is a nightmare. The reason we started looking into getting a new ambulance is I got a letter from the Aero, Aero Manufacturing out of Rock Rapids, Iowa, said that if you don't start ordering an ambulance now, it's going to be 3 to 4 years due to the shortages and the backlog. And we're just looking into buying a new ambulance.
And we're looking to also expand our services. We've mentioned in our proposal there part-time ALS. And that's not to take away from Brookings. We're not looking to compete against Brookings hospital systems in any way. It's just due to the distance, we're able to serve our community better and to provide a higher level of care when our paramedic is on scene. So some of our equipment in there as well is helping us just serve better, so our patients are better cared for, better ready for the definitive care they need, whether they would be going to Brookings or Moody County. We work with both ALS services, so we're just looking to expand our level of care, simply because of the distance that we do have between. And Brookings is busy. We all know that the ambulance service is busy. We might have a critical patient, and Brookings is over in Arlington or over in Volga and such, and it's a quite a wait, and we can do a lot more by doing some of this.
Questions by the commissioners? Commissioner Pierce.
I have a question, and I'm just going to admit my ignorance up front. I'm not really familiar with the Elkton Ambulance Service. Could you tell us some about your organizational structure and how you work, that kind of thing?
Yeah, we are, a lot of people assume that we're under the same funding umbrella as the Elkton Fire Department. We're not. We actually are a separate entity. We are completely separate. We have our own separate funding, own checkbook, if you will. We operate under the umbrella of the city, but we are separate. We are essentially self-funded. What we make in load fees and such, insurance reimbursements, Medicare, which isn't always that much, but what we make funds us, keeps us going. We also get a nice stipend of about, is it $6,000 a year or
$7,000.
$7,000 a year from the city, which of course helps out with fuel and stuff. And so we are self-funded, but the problem comes is when you look at something like this. We haven't banked much to start saving for an ambulance. So we don't receive funding from the county or the townships. We're working to change that a little bit because we do serve the townships a lot. You know, we're out in the townships more than the fire department is. You know, and so that's, you know, any funding that the Elkton Fire Department receives, and I'm on the Elkton Fire Department, the ambulance doesn't see. So it's we are separate. And
so are you a profit organization, a nonprofit organization?
We're completely volunteer. We're nonprofit. Just it's pretty much just a service to the community.
When I looked at the South Dakota Secretary of State stuff, your nonprofit status, it looks like, was dissolved. Are you nonprofit under South Dakota law? I couldn't find that.
I really can't answer that.
All right, thanks.
Just a quick question on the ownership of the new ambulance request. Is it the city that takes the title, or is it your nonprofit group that takes the title? How is this going to be titled, and how is it going to be handled if you dissolve the ambulance service? What happens to the funds, the ambulance, that type of thing? Since you have I understand it's all volunteer, and I really appreciate that. I really do. But just what happens to that assets? Who's titled to?
it would be under the city is going to take the title and stuff, and they help with the insurance and stuff. Everything's under the umbrella of the city there.
Okay. All right. So your insurance is covered by the city and so
Yes.
forth. What's the, you said you had some money set aside for the ambulance. What have you got?
We have like $30,000 in our
About
expense account
30,000
right now for a new
the
truck.
the ALS component of it was, I think, in your report, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40,000. Was that correct?
Yeah, when you're looking at like the IO tools and your advanced airway devices and stuff, yes, part of that is going to, and the Lucas 3 and upgrade on that as well. And so, yes, it would be about that.
I did have a conversation with the Brookings Health System, and they're not concerned about you guys having ALS. As a matter of fact, they think it's probably more necessary than not, so because their reaction to service times in the Elkton area is obviously longer than they would like to see also, even with their services. So the person I talked to didn't have any objections to you having ALS services. So I think that's important if you're going to have this new ambulance that it have those particular services. It's my understanding, though, that ALS services can only be provided if you have Mr. Stufen
Correct.
on the ambulance at the time. Is there any plans to expand that staffing as far as an EMT certification?
Yes, I just was in contact with the osteopathic board in Sioux Falls about putting on a EMTA class so we could move up our EMT basics to EMTA so they could do advanced level care.
Okay, I
And
think that would be
in the
appropriate.
process of doing that, it's just a slow
There's a lot of
process.
paperwork. I would be one of those who would take the class. What is an additional 350 hours
Yeah.
or something of classroom time and such that we'd have to get done. You got like 2 years to do it, but we'd have to do that. And so then, yes, the EMTAs would be able to provide a higher level of care than the Bs. Not as high as, Mr. Stufenken as a paramedic, but we're looking to increase our services, And again, doing all this, it's like doing standby at the football games. I'm there. I just hope I'm not needed. It's good to not be needed, but we're there to serve our community. And, like last week, we had our first true MCI, and we had a call. We had 5 to 6 individuals, unknown ingestion of substance, unresponsive. We're one rig, that quickly overtaxes us, so then you're calling in Brookings, you're calling in White, and so it's a whole combined effort.
Do you have any, maybe not today, but could provide us with the number of calls you have on an annual basis? Do you have it off the top of your head, a round figure?
Yeah, we can run that. We can get that off of our charting system. I would imagine we're about 80 to 100 calls a year.
80 to 100, okay.
Yeah.
Because we do chart everything per the state. Anytime we're toned out, they ask us to, file a report with the state. And so whether or not I file it, whether I might get down to the ambulance garage and we're told to stand down, we're not needed, I still file that report because it's a call for service. I file the calls that are not the calls, but any standby like at football games because we're in service doing, we're there for availability. So, and I will say that it's interesting how many of the referees that come in are very, very appreciative that we're standing by because they've had games where you've got a player that's critically injured and you're waiting and waiting and waiting for an ambulance.
See, I consider that a call.
Yes.
If you're providing that service. Second question is pertains to the value of your trade-in. I don't know the exact purchase price, and you probably don't either, but if I recall, it was 300 and some thousand for the ambulance. 311,000.
311. The ambulance purchase price is in there. Also, what we're looking at would be a new Lucas 3. We currently run the Lucas 2. Lucas 3, for those that are unfamiliar, I'm sorry I wrote this out in medical terms like I was talking to an EMS board, but Lucas wins Firefighter of the Year. That's a joke. What it is a CPR device, and it provides incredible CPR. I can put that on someone, and I can essentially get radial pulses back. You can almost get a level of consciousness back from someone on this device. It's doing compressions. It is perfusing the body that well. And so that's one of the devices. The LifePak Secure Mount from Furno, $750. That is simply to secure our LifePak, which is about a $35,000 machine now. It's right now seat belted to a seat. It's not secured real well. You don't want to drop those. You can carry them. They're incredibly expensive. That is our AED, our 12-lead device that we can transmit a strip, kind of from the old emergency days, transmit a strip. We can, back to the hospital. The IO tools and airway devices, Scott can attest to those a little more because that's a higher level of care I'm not trained on. And the 6 handheld radios from Two Way Solutions, our radio systems have gotten better in the county. What we're looking at is going away from, I've got the old analog one yet. We're looking at something that's P25 compatible as the new digital protocols come in. And so that's what we're looking at there. And, it's, I about fell over when I talked to Two Way, looking for this proposal for this, how much these would be, because I asked for the baseline models. I could have gotten that a lot higher, and I said, I just want something that listens and mash the push to talk button, and I can hopefully talk to someone. So that's what we're looking at, too, is to have a 6 handheld radios to start with that are backwards compatible to our current system, but forwards compatible to the upcoming P25 protocols that are coming in. Scott, you want to say anything about the IO devices in the airway?
Well, I've been a paramedic for 20 years, and just recently we've had like a rash of cardiac arrests in Elkton. We've had like 3 or 4, and I've been there, and I can't do anything because we're just a basic life support ambulance service. So I'm sitting there waiting with deputies, a couple of Marty's deputies, and some of the EMT basics from Elkton, just doing CPR, and there's so much more I could be doing for these people. And if I'm able to, I want to be able to provide that service. So the IO gun, they are expensive because they're new, but that's just avoids you having to do an IV. Starting an IV, you go into the intraosseous to give your cardiac medicines. That would probably be the biggest portion of the expense of getting stuff going for that. your IV needles and stuff. Everything costs money, especially medical, and it's gonna get worse. Everything's getting more expensive right now. I just wanna go to ALS, part-time ALS, and I talked to Dr. Peterson about it, and just to help out the citizens of Elkton, because I feel helpless when I'm sitting there and can't do nothing. I know what needs to be done and I can't do it. And it's really aggravating. And then when we meet Brookings, that puts us 20 minutes behind the 8 ball usually. You know, somebody's been down, we've been doing compressions for 20 minutes. Cell death starts at 4. And I just want to be able to help people, and anything you guys could do to help us out with that, I would greatly appreciate.
I was wondering more on the coverage area. Are you into Lake Benton, Ward?
We're on the border, and that's one of those gray areas between two defining maps. You know, we do go across the border. You know, sometimes, you know, there's always those competing agencies, if you will, Tyler Ambulance. But, you know, again, we're looking at patient care. But we're a lot of times 2 minutes away, 3 minutes away from the patient, as opposed to Tyler having to come over. Because Lake Benton has simply first responders. They're like Aurora or Volga. They got first responders. So their definitive care is Tyler. You know, and if you're 3 miles east of Elkton, you know, it's a lot closer for us. We have been called, but, you know, we go there. Since we're not affiliated, we do transport. I've gone to Hendricks, I've gone to Pipestone, I've gone to Tyler, I've gone to Moody County, or excuse me, Flandreau, I've gone to Brookings. It depends on the level, the call, what kind of care you need, but we cover a pretty good sized area all the way north past Deer Creek. Essentially, at least the fire district size, the size of the Elkton Fire District. And we've been called to help out. You know, the other day we didn't have enough staff, you know, because a lot of us are out of town, but we've even been called over to Coleman when they had that large accident on the interstate the other day. They needed to transport. You know, and part of it too is we don't want to go that far away and take our one ambulance out of service for that long. So transports are getting to be a big deal these days. So part of the plan that's been kicked around is, you know, keep the current ambulance as a backup, and then if you have staff, and you can do some of those transports that are needed to help out other agencies as well. So it's just looking to improve the level of care.
Just a quick question for you, Bob. I hate to wake you up here. Well, we looked at the 6 handheld radios from Two-Way Solutions for the $19,519. Is that a similar radio to what you've been ordering or you want to order on your proposal?
Yeah, I assume it's a dual band with the digital and the analog.
Is there a way to piggyback this order onto yours for a better purchase price and volume, or is it not necessary? Do you want to look at that type of take it off this budget and put it on yours?
I don't think we'd get a break by coming to emergency management.
Yeah. I'm just always concerned to make sure all these radios talk to each other and make sure. We've had that issue in the past where you guys bought one and they had a different one and all of a sudden nothing talks to each other. So I want to make sure that if it's better that we purchase all these with our funds, it may
with
be
the
a
new
better.
P25 standards, I think they're all going to be compatible.
All right.
Yes.
That's my biggest concern.
And that was my concern, is to make sure that they knew that these would have the P25 modem in there and be forward compatible.
Well, I encourage you to ask Bob if what you're going to buy is going to work, and you guys make sure that it does, is one of my concerns. Second concern is you tell me you have about 30,000 that you have in reserves. If we were, again, we're trying to be a little bit conservative with our funds. If we were to look at a proposal for less than that, at say 290 or 290 or 300,000, allow you to use some of your other funds to make a decision on what you want to do with them, and whether the city would help you again with some expenses, because we would carry the largest expense with the ambulance if you could cover the rest of the expenses. Is that a doable thing for you? I mean, we ask you to ask for everything. And then
Yes, that would be doable. I'm on the city council in Oakton.
Okay.
And we've been discussing this for a couple months, and anything you could do to help us out would be greatly appreciated, and the city is on board to help out.
Yep, and any shared responsibility, we're willing to step up and take that on. It's, you ask for the stars and the moon and you hope for a piece of the sky. It's a bad joke, but that's you're asking for go for broke. You're happy with what you get. Any funding we would receive, we'd be appreciative of, and we would certainly be able to share that, just like the Elkton Fire Department is willing to, and such as well too. So
what we're looking at right now is the ambulance cost of $269,800. Is that a firm price or is that just an estimate?
That is a firm price. I got it right here.
Okay, the
And
firm
I just got
price
off
for
the
how
phone with them.
long? I
I
mean,
just got
usually
off
they
the-
hold these 30 days. How long is this price good for?
Actually, Arrow has a program out right now. They put our name on a chassis and they will hold it for us. Because the big problem is you're not going to be able to get any chassis with the backlog and stuff with parts and everything. So I did a W9, some deal with them the other day, and they put our name on a chassis and they will hold it for us for a certain amount of time. And we have to promise them no down payment or anything. They will start the build for us. And if we don't want it, they will sell it to somebody else.
I'm sure that'd be possible. So we're talking about 15 months to
No,
maybe longer?
he said the first quarter of this year it would be done.
First quarter of this year?
Of
Okay.
2023.
If we make an approval today, it would be my desire that we pay for this out of our funds rather than transferring it to your funds.
Yes.
Title would go to you, but we would pay for it out of our funds. And I guess I support this. There's some other things in there. I think you can work with Bob on radios if necessary and your other items. But I'd be happy to approve the purchase of the ambulance so that you could get that locked in. That would be a suggestion, comments.
Yeah, so you said the city has the title for yours, the city would have the title for this. You know, Scott, you've been doing this a long time, and if you decide to retire, okay, does the Upton ambulance go away?
No. Actually, I do a lot of education in Elkton, so I am always training new EMTs to make sure that doesn't happen. I donate about, $600 a year teaching?
It's, yeah.
So an
a lot.
EMT class is, the cheapest one you're going to find around is $1,500 for somebody to take an EMT class. I do it for the Elkton people for nothing, just so we never lose our ambulance.
And then we also do, and we've been told it's one of the best in the state, every March we do a refresher, and we open it up. District 1 is the EMS district we're in, but we do it for ALS, BLS providers, first responders, anywhere. We get them from Minnesota, Cottonwood, we get them, Watertown, and, we do that extremely affordable too as well, because you have to have so many hours of continuing ed every time you recertify. And Scott and I don't believe in just PowerPointing people to death because you can stand there and click, 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 click. We bring in, guest speakers. We bring in people, we've had people from the Poison Control Center out of the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, and so we're also working to keep our current EMTs certified, because you need to maintain a level of level of training, new stuff every year for certification. So we do that as well, We don't make them go to Spearfish or something, for example, for recertification. It's done in-house, in town, and that also assures that we can keep the ambulance service moving.
How many EMTs do you currently have?
We are at 13 right now, and another one is moving back that had moved to Sioux Falls, so we'll be at 14.
And we've got one more that can take the written, that's all that's left is to get the written test done, so hopefully we'll be at 15. And there's been some interest, once we get enough interest, maybe potentially in the future another class, but we will see doing that, so.
Do the ambulance services in the county, like your service and Brookings service, and there's one other one, I believe.
White.
Yeah. Do you all work together on training, or is that everybody does that individually?
Well, through District 1, most of the training is done. District 1 is Lake Preston, Arlington, all of them are involved in it. But over in Elkton, we do most of our own. We set up and we have monthly training every month, and we do our refresher every year just to meet our hours. We invite everybody in. Like he said, we get people from all over the state of South Dakota coming to our refresher.
And we've had the state EMS board there, and they are impressed the way we do it. They like coming and being with us in person because we try to do the best we can, and they are very happy with it. So it's, and I will say, kudos to, even the fire department. They take a look at that, and he said, it's nice to see trucks clean, your hallway, your fire hall clean, things like that, and keeping the ambulance clean looks good on the state level. So, I mean, does it make you sure of anything? No, but it always looks good at the state level when they see that level of stuff, dedication, so.
Other questions or comments?
Any other comments or desires? I guess I would look at I won't make the motion yet, but is there desire to say we would approve the purchase of an ambulance up to $270,000 on an invoice? Up to? That way if the invoice comes in at 271,000, they're gonna have to kick in the other 1,000 for whatever reason. If well, I can. I just want to toss some money around, see if you guys have other ideas.
I think to me anyway, the shared responsibility is something that I am in favor of. I think as we were talking earlier about the funding priorities and making sure that there's some shared skin in the game, that was something that was important to us, and that we're using those county ARPA dollars to help forward initiatives in a way that's sort of joint responsibility for it. So to me, Mike, I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm really supportive of the work that you guys do, and want to make sure that we can help facilitate that. I think it's an incredibly valuable service on the east side of the county in particular. And so I would be supportive of something like that.
Stacy, I'm flipping through our handouts on my iPad, and I'm looking for that chart that you had with the ARPA funds. Thank you. So
They're not ARPA funds anymore. They are commission project funds.
the commission project funds.
Yes.
Thank you. And how much money do we have left in that fund that we haven't allocated?
So what we did 2 weeks ago were these amounts in green, plus I'm not sure this 80,000 for 214th. I think that was maybe approved as it was a guess, yeah. So about 4 million of it is spoken for of the 6.8, give or take.
Thank you.
I think too, of our purchase of the ambulance, I think you'll have no problem approaching the city of Elkton, surrounding township boards that would be willing to help you out also with, outfitting with your equipment. So I'm also in support of it. So
Yeah, and I am too. I just want Elkton Ambulance to be around.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy a $270,000 or $300,000 vehicle, and 5 years from now, Elkton Ambulance is gone, and the city has a valuable asset there that we paid for.
Yeah, we're not going to let that happen.
Okay. So, I mean, I had thoughts going through my head of taking co-title with the county and the city, but I'm not sure. I don't know if that's an option. If we want to even get into that opens up a can of worms. But that would then ensure, though, if somebody tried to sell that, we would do that. So I think that would just muddy the water. Hopefully, you understand where we're coming from. I think there I just would hate to see this dissolve and have an asset there that is.
It's a valid concern because we hear about it all the time. Ambulance services are on the brink. And you're relying on volunteers, and I appreciate that. I mean, you're always looking to recruit new volunteers to keep it going. And hopefully myself, my body says, I've got another 20 plus years in me. And it's at least. So it's a valid concern, and I appreciate that. And we're always looking to recruit too. And you're trying to get the young people. There are programs out where they can actually get EMS training in high school now. They have to be 18 to take the test, but they can start their classes through Sanford and stuff. A lot of online stuff. So, we're starting even at the high school level to try to encourage this, because it's just good training, especially for those that want to go into nursing, for example, or any kind of health care that you learn quite a bit just serving as an EMT.
Well, and I think this type of a purchase, a new ambulance, helps recruiting younger people to come into the.
I think it would really help us
Because
get
you'll
some
have the
younger
newest
people in.
ambulance.
Right,
in the
because
county,
one of the
obviously.
things we want to do too is, our ambulance, while very functional and works well, has worked well, is it's kind of a plain Jane, and put a little more, people see graphics, and you make sure it stands out, that they can see it, and the new lighting and stuff, that's blinky lights gets kids' attention, and so it's, use it, yes, as a recruitment tool as well, so.
you said possible use as a transport vehicle.
Possible
in the
use, if
future.
we were to keep the old ambulance, you'd be able to, that way when, for example, Moody County contacts us, we have someone over in Coleman they needed to take to the VA. Yes, we've got a rig available. If we've got basically you need an EMT and a driver at that point. We can recruit a driver from the fire department, because they've got EVOC training, they're covered by insurance. And yes, we can take that transport because there you need just an EMT. You're not critical care. You don't need the level of care in the back. But yes, that is what to do with the old ambulances. It's like the old fire equipment, the price drops out drastically because of depreciation. Well, we don't want to give that away for a song either. If you can get some good money for it, fine. Or if there's another use within the county, if someplace like Aurora or Ball gets started up, there'd be a possibility there. But to use that as a backup rig, one, if something happens to the new one, and two, you can do another level of care because transport, like Scott and I were discussing over here, they're being transferred all over. And as our population ages, the needs are only going to increase for services such as that.
The reason I asked that, I didn't know if there was an elderly care facility in Elkton that
No.
had
No, there
routine.
isn't. We do get requested by Flandreau quite a bit, asking us to do a transfer for them. At my job, I would say 75% of our business is transferring patients from the hospital to Sioux Falls. And that's going to continue. It's not going to go away. And that's why going ALS is a big advantage because Brookings is going to be tied up on transfers a lot. And we can get care to them a little bit quicker.
Brookings Ambulance serves a large number of people in a pretty large area. It's 30,000 plus, just guessing. You got the city of Brookings, you got you got Aurora, you got Volga, you got Bruce, you got Sinai, and you got a lot of acres there, a lot of miles, a lot of square miles. And so they do a fine job. Like I said, we're not looking to compete against them. We're just looking to augment and, help support make their service a little less urgent over on the east side of the county.
That I'd like to make a motion to fund the Aero ambulance purchase up to $270,000 off of invoice when it arrives. I think it's when it arrives. You pay on delivery.
Would there be a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call the roll, please, Jenna.
Pierce,
Aye.
Bartley,
Aye.
Jensen,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Boersma.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you for your
Thank
time
you.
and your support.
Yeah. I think based on,
We have a 10 o'clock public hearing.
so then we'll start the commission department director's report.
I'm going to send around too for those of you here that will be here for the 10 o'clock. I'm going to start sending around a sign-in sheet because that's needed if you want to start, Dan. We can send it to commission, but everyone that is going to be here for the 10 o'clock needs to sign that. My report, I can get a quick start on it here. The August Veteran Service Officer numbers were 5 DAV van rides, 1 outreach event. Our VSO was at a couple of different events that took her out of the office. That's why numbers are a little bit low here for August. Veteran Service Officer School, that is a required training out in Pierre for I think it's like 3 days out in Pierre. She attended that, and then a national convention as well that took her out of the office for several days. So that is that. Do you want me to continue, or is it?
We're like
We've
30
got-
seconds from. Does anybody have questions related to VSO? I know we've had several conversations about that. Commissioner Pierce, anything?
Not on the DSO. I had a question on the surplus.
That
I think
gonna
we'll
be
wait. Yeah,
I was
we'll
gonna
get
say, that is going to
into
be a
that.
longer conversation, I imagine.
We'll get into that after.
So that highway signature sign-in form that's going around, every single person that's in attendance does have to sign that. I think that's a part of the state program that there's a certain level of accountability. So not just commissioners, not just staff, but every attendee. So as that comes around, just please make sure that you do sign in. Thank you. So with that, we'll conduct our 10 a.m. public hearing and action to approve the Brookings County 2023 5-year highway and bridge improvement plan. So So you see that in front of you. I don't know. We'll start with a motion to approve, and then we'll have Brian kind of walk through the entire thing. Would there be a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Well, great. In chorus, shall we? So Brian, we've got a motion on the table. I'm going to have you kind of run through everything, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to clear a couple of things up. I'd like to point out that our structures under 20 feet are on this plan. And brought that up to me before the meeting. The plan in front of you currently right now satisfies the requirements of the DOT for our 5-year plan to meet the October 15th deadline to be eligible for big improvement grants. So I wanted to point those two out. Prior to providing a 5-year road plan, I know which I typically provide to the commission at the same time that I provide our bridge plan, I would like to have discussion on the finalization of that plan. As with the volatility of the prices lately, I don't want to cause confusion like I felt we did this year. I have made you aware of the drastic changes that were made to stay within budget for 2022. I mentioned that earlier this spring when we talked about that. There's some projects out there that are hanging. The projects that are hanging right now, one would be Smar Avenue. I know that was discussed. We have never actually physically put a number on what we feel we need to allocate for that. I don't want to put that in the plan. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know where we're at on that. I think at our last meeting, we weren't going to find out until October, if I remember right.
I believe it was when the Community Access Infrastructure Grant
Correct.
report came back.
So another one I know that it's going to be bid is going to be the 34th Avenue project. It was brought up at the last meeting, Barb's Park. I'd like to have a little more direction from the commission and then what our goal should be down there in an effort to make that intersection safer. With that being said, those projects that we have that are hanging will have a lot of effect on what I can plan for next year, such as my asphalt projects. I know I brought to you guys this in the spring. My 5-year plan entailed some projects such as microsurfacing. That had to be eliminated. It nearly added about $20,000 in price. Our asphalt projects from years past had typically hovered around that $120,000 mark. This year we were at about $175,000. So I'm a little hesitant on providing that plan until we can get some teeth into what our goal is going to be. So I wanted to point that out. But the plan that is in front of you right now will satisfy the requirements laid out by the DOT and the federal programs that we can be eligible for in this plan that's provided to you right now.
You said it does or does not include the small structures?
It does.
Okay. Oh, there you said did not, so I
It
got
does.
confused.
I apologize. I want to point out that it does. If we look at page 1 of 1, the second line below is a 06251-040U. Anything that's designated with a U behind it, that is a structure under 20 feet. And that would be a structure that I would intend that the Brookings County Highway staff would install, do the removals and install those structures. So those structures would be 100% county money.
So in bullet point fashion, if you could, Brian, can we just review the projects that you said are hanging out there? So Barb's Park, sorry. Samara Avenue.
Smar Avenue, 214th Street,
Yep.
and 34th Avenue.
Okay.
Could we change Barb's Park to South 77
South.
esque curve
That's
redesign.
fine. I just,
Um,
So
and
you have 4, is that what you
I
said?
have 4.
34th Samara, the S-curve, and 214th?
Yes.
Okay.
these are all projects that I know we have been made well aware of. I know that these projects need to have some planning, not all of them, but need to have some planning, which is going to affect my budget. And I feel that until we have that discussion, I'm hesitant to give you guys that because there was quite a bit of confusion, folks asking, well, why isn't my road being done this year? It was on the 5-year plan. And I made a caveat to every 5-year plan that I have provided to you guys. That plan can and will change. No different than what we're providing to the DOT, but until I think we're all on the same page, I'm hesitant to provide that road plan. Now, the 5-year plan for the bridges, I understand Leanne made mention that it's quite extensive, but we also have to remember that on that plan, there has also been 2 major changes in the local federal bridge replacement program, which we were made well aware of last week at the county convention, which have all been piled into one program with the state, but there's different requirements and eligibility for those funds for certain structures. The local federal bridge replacement programs are geared towards secondary roads. So meaning our roads that those structures would be eligible for are on township roads. So we had to do some jockeying around. It's on the plan to apply for. This isn't guaranteeing we're going to get the funds, but it's on the plan to apply for. So I want to point that out to you. We have to show it on the plan so we can apply for it. We may not get it, but we have to show it on the plan so we can apply for it.
Do we have to have preliminary engineering on all those secondary roads?
Not on the local federal. That's all included, where the big program gains us points if we have it done. If we do have that done on the local federal side, it doesn't have as many or as much effects because there's money on the federal side to pay for that preliminary engineering.
The other thing I think we learned last week was the change from, on the big program from 4 million to 8 million.
Correct.
Okay, so we do have a larger possibility for funding on our own, okay, to help us with the big grant.
Just to stay underneath what at one time was, or for the longest time, it's been a $4.3 million cap. That cap has been moved to 8 million.
Which gets about the same amount of work done with inflation.
Correct.
So if I'm reading this right, there are no small structures planned for next year. I'm not seeing in 23 any of the.
3.5 north of White, 1.1 east of White is 06251-040U replacement. It's a U replacement.
And when we get our, I think it's in November that we get our report from Banner. Is this year small structures or is this year the big structures when we get our?
This has accompanied both.
Pardon me?
This plan accompanies both our small and our over structures. You're talking about our inspection program.
Exactly. That's what I'm asking. What do we get this year?
Well, this will be our inspection program. Our inspection cycle is this year.
Okay. And
So
is it for big or small this year?
it's for the large, it's the structures over 20.
Okay.
And that's another, that's another thing that the federal government is requesting of counties, and I'm looking into, is to split our bridges. So we're not doing all 250 some bridges all in 1 year. We're doing half 1 year and half the next year. The federal government's kind of pushing this.
Is the whole state that way?
Well, they're working on the counties that have the larger number of structures, and we are one of them. You know, there's some counties out there, you know, out west where they may only have one structure or 5 or 10, where it doesn't really make a difference on a budget number. Whereas if we're doing all 200 inspections, our number every other year is pretty big. And to even that out, it would be, I think, advantageous to us. So if we do have a critical structure, they're in the area anyways, and we're already going to know that, hey, we need to pay attention to this one, and it's probably going to be recommended that that gets inspected every year anyways. So that is something I'm working through also, and working towards hopefully putting together RFP to do that, is split our structures up.
Further questions or comments from the commission?
Those small structures, the second year there, whatever, 2023 of 175,000. It's all local funding. There is no opportunity to get any type of.
Not on our primary system. These structures that are under 20 feet are on our primary system.
They're on township roads.
No, they are on our primary, either gravel or our asphalt roads that are under our
They're under
jurisdiction.
20 feet, so they don't.
Correct.
They don't qualify.
They don't qualify. Now, if they're on a township road, we know that there's a program set in place for that, that townships are eligible to come and request now from us. And none of those have been on this. That is the plans that we've been provided by the townships.
You know, I often think we pay a lot of attention to our big bridges, and that's why I have so many questions about small structures today. And when we look at the two that are on there for 2023 at $175,000 each, those would be projects that your department would do the labor on, is that correct?
Correct.
So you're thinking the materials for those will be $175,000 each?
By the time we would hire a crane, buy the actual physical structure, to bring in the material, I'm just estimating that would be what it's going to cost. I mean, I'm sure it's a little bit high, but I don't know what prices are going to do.
Commissioner Pierce, could you make sure your microphone is
I'm
pulled
sorry.
close? Sorry.
So there are certain aspects of it, such as a crane, that would have to hire. We just don't have a crane, for one, and two, an operator. Adding those in together, you know, we do every attempt to make sure that that crane's only there for a day, but that day costs us in the neighborhood between $25,000 and $30,000.
Do you know, so last year was small structures on the inspection list then, if I understood you right?
Correct.
How many small structures do we have that are designated as needing replacement? Do you know?
Sitting down with Banner, we have a list, but I'm trying to coincide my list with the projects we have going on. We were awarded a local federal project for a bridge north of White, which would be that 06251-040. There is a local federal bridge within 500 feet of this structure that I'm trying to coincide it so we don't have multiple closures like we had discussed previously. And also with these structures, it is my intention to just say the second one here that's listed, 6 north and 3.7 west of Elkton, that's on County Road 38. That road's in some pretty needy shape for some asphalt, and I would like to have this structure replaced before we do that overlay. And that's my intention, is to overlay that road next year, but do this structure prior to that overlay.
Other questions or comments?
The only other thing that I'd like to point out, as you can see in there, 0.9 north of Bushnell, we're going bid ready review on that, as you can see right there, in an effort to apply for the full replacement in the same year. And that bid ready review buys us points to make us more eligible for those funds. So I mean, I'm trying to do some work prior to us applying for that replacement grant, so we can get more points in the end to make that project happen. And you can see those bid ready reviews are very expensive at $120,000, but we may not have to apply for a larger percentage of the replacement because we're up on our points, if you can follow what I'm saying there.
What would you need from us if, say, the South 77 intersection to apply for a highway safety grant? Would it have to be in the 5-year plan or not?
The highway safety grant is a little bit different animal. The only project that I'm aware of that we are eligible from the federal side, because the safety money comes from the federal side, is south of Volga on 464th. The amount of accidents that we need to have to be eligible is determined by the federal government. And I know I reached out to Marty and we haven't contacted back since, but I asked him to put together statistics on the physical accidents there. And we haven't gotten back together yet. But that's the tough part about it, is we're not eligible for those until, I'm sorry to say it, too late.
Question, one of the things on the federal funds of the infrastructure money that come down to the state, and the state gave it, part of it to the DOT to disperse. Have they finalized how they're going to disperse that?
No.
So we're in
we're in limbo.
Gray area. No matter what we present as a plan right now, it's subject to change simply on funding opportunities. The DOT
and that's why you can
infrastructure.
see my list is so expansive.
Okay.
I don't want to have to come back to this commission later and ask for an amendment.
Well, I'm not opposed to an amendment if it's necessary.
But if we put it on
I understand
there,
where you're going with this, but we've got 4 other things that aren't on here right now that you're requesting we try and put on here.
That isn't part of the DOT requirements.
Okay.
This packet in front of you right now will make Brookings County eligible for applying for those funds. These projects that we're talking about, I had previously in previous years had provided a separate sheet to you guys on our road plan.
All right.
There is eligibilities out there, as Leanne and I discussed with the DOT, but they don't need to be on our 5-year plan to apply for those funds.
I guess that was my question, basically.
Correct.
It's fluid.
Yep. So those projects don't have to be on a 5-year plan to be eligible for it. Because those are totally different funds, and nothing has been finalized by the DOT aside from 2 or 3 deadlines now that they didn't even know about until the beginning of August.
And I understand that we don't have to have them on this plan and we need to get this plan adopted. But I really would like us to have that written highway plan looking out like 5 years or whatever we've done in the past. Because I think putting it in writing helps us stay on target, and it helps us, like Marty talked about on the strategic plan, you can look and you can see, I've got this done, I got this to work on, and it gives us a roadmap. for our
I
roads.
agree. I like having the agreement from everybody prior to making it to the public, and the public coming back and saying, well, you changed this because this didn't happen. And that plan also hinges on a lot of what we apply for and get, because say we apply for a structure on a certain road and we don't get it and that structure doesn't happen, well, we don't want to say that we're going to be doing an asphalt project now. And, well, you said you were going to be doing an asphalt project and now it isn't happening because we didn't get the structure.
A good plan has to be flexible, ultimately. And I think, Brian, to your point on those four kind of hanging out there projects, most of what we've talked about is preparation, I think. And correct me if you think I'm wrong. Preparation to make sure that we've got an idea of roughly how much it'll cost, roughly how long the construction period is, so that we're prepared to plan for those future
Correct.
projects. And so I don't know that the construction of those projects necessarily lands on this 5-year plan until we have some sort of grant match, much like our big program. So as much of the preliminary engineering work as we can do in preparation for applying for matching funds, I think is the goal. True?
That was my suggestion. We gotta have some PE done. Otherwise, we don't know what we're doing.
Right.
And so for the public to maybe assume that those are necessarily going to be constructed in the next 5 years, or even for us to suggest that those might be constructed in the next 5 years, I think is 100% still dependent on what types of matching funds and grant opportunities become available through infrastructure programs. Because Brookings County taxpayers don't want to foot the bill for the entire thing. I know we don't. Our levy's not that high. We don't want it to be that high.
Agree.
Okay.
So, that being said, working within my budget right now, I wouldn't have any of these projects on that plan,
For preliminary engineering.
or even possible construction.
Right.
I mean, I know one I will, the 34th Avenue,
Yep.
but those other few, I would not.
Okay.
'Cause you're actually at the mercy of the state too. When they do the bid letting, it can be held up until the next year.
Correct.
But the fact that that's not in your budget, Brian, we have monies assigned to, in the general fund, if we have a grant opportunity come up on one of these projects that we would like to have completed. We do have funds set aside for that should we need them.
Right, but that also brings up the point of those small structures, because they're looking at some of these ones in 2023 that it's almost $1 million that there is no help. And so, we can be aggressive, but we don't want to be foolish either with spending down too quick there, and now we don't have reserves for recession or anything like that too. So there's a lot of projects on here for 2023, and if you don't have any of the matching or any of the stuff in your budget, and your budget is tapped with, overlays and microsurfing and that kind of stuff, I think we've got a decision to make here how aggressive we want to be with these. Obviously, public safety is important, that if there's a structure that absolutely needs it, we got to do it. The other thing, though, is there's also money out there for grants. Do we continue to focus on those?
Absolutely.
To get that 80-20 match, and also, or 50-50, whatever we decide to do to win those projects, we want to keep that going. But we just have to be a little bit careful not to overspend with, prices as high as they are and inflation the way it is. We got to be careful not to be too aggressive.
I just want to make sure that we're not talking apples and oranges. What you have on the bridge plan for 2023 is in your budget for 2023. Is that incorrect? I thought it was the roads that you don't have in your budget.
No, the roads I have in there, and these would be as mentioned earlier, you know, we're looking at various different forms of matching. You know, you guys can see the years there. You know, replacement or design bid replacement, you know, we're looking at roughly about $620 or $50,000. You know, that would be coming out of what we would, I mean, I don't think that number's gonna be that, but, you know, if we go design bid replacement on those structures, 1.4 south of White and 2 west of White, you know, we're looking at, trying to save money in the end, coming out of the road and bridge fund, we would have a lesser value that would come out. Our value on that, we would only maybe be looking at a 80-20, whereas if we didn't have those points, we'd be looking at a 50-50, and we're gonna spend the money anyways. So it's some of that's gonna have to come out of the road and bridge fund.
But my question is, what is on here for the county share, okay? You have, for 23, I'm not talking about all those years after that because that changes, but we already got the 23 budget done. Are the items that are on the bridge plan for 23 in your budget for 23?
We've worked through this a lot. None of the monies that say the replacement, that does not come out of my budget. That gets supplemented into my budget.
Correct.
Correct. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So it's not in your budget for what we mill levy for.
Correct.
Comes out of reserve that gets.
That
put
gets
into
supplemented into my budget when the project happens.
So I think the answer is no, that it's not in your budget.
Because we budgeted for it in a previous year.
Correct.
And so we should have fund balance for that project that gets supplemented into the budget for the project.
I know that's always been confusion in the past is, yeah, it's not in my budget. It needs to be supplemented into my budget because it's been set aside in the road and bridge fund.
It has previously been budgeted.
And we have the funds.
And we have the funds.
So when
What
we're-
year was that particular one budgeted in?
When we got the grant in 19, I believe.
And what project, what did we name this project?
We've gotten a lot of these projects where we haven't put a name on them yet, but they were awarded by the state for preservation or PE grant. We put them in there to say like the ones that we're going to be applying for replacement south of or north of Bushnell for replacement. At that point in time, that would be when we would have to budget it in 23, but the state doesn't care where the money comes from, whether it's in my budget or whether it's in the road and bridge fund.
we care.
I understand that you care, but
That
the direction I got from the commission earlier this year when I was doing my budget, I asked the commission how much the commission would like to allocate every year, and roughly we've done about $2 million. At that point in time, that's where that money would need to be earmarked in that road and bridge fund.
I'd like to hear Stacy's thoughts on that.
What I think we need to do a better job of is if there are things like this that are budgeted, say in 2019, and then don't get expended. At one of the first meetings in 2020, we assign it within that fund balance in the highway department, otherwise we lose it. So what I think we need to do, and we need to sit down, Brian, and maybe with Lori as well, sit down and see what projects over the years we've budgeted for and which years they were budgeted for, and then that money rolled into fund balance. So it's sitting there in fund balance, but we know that we're going to have, eventually that project's going to happen, and then we're going to have to supplement it back. But I think we need to do a better job of assigning those funds at year end, every year at year end, or right away at the beginning of the new year, make those assignments so that we know where we're at.
Completely agree, and I think what I'm concerned about a little bit now is that we're not budgeting for new projects, so they're not getting assessed, that it's all just coming out of reserve. You know, because before we'd budget for something to pay for the, $500,000 wouldn't happen, so we put it in reserve. But now, if you're saying you're not budgeting for these up here for this 560 because we haven't even been awarded yet, when do we budget for that to make sure that we have the money for it and we're not just doing all these bridges out of reserve?
Right.
That's what starts concerning me a little bit, is all of a sudden we do a couple of these small structures and they're not budgeted for.
The small structures are out of our plan. Excuse me. The small structures are
Okay.
in my budget.
Okay,
They wouldn't come out of the road and bridge.
gotcha. But our local match.
Our
needs to be
local match would need to be,
budgeted
what
for.
we have agreed on is to budget it, roll it back into fund balance,
Sign it.
and assign it, supplement my budget when the project happens.
I agree with Stacy. I think we need to do a better job of that. Make sure that, one, we're not budgeting for a project twice,
Correct.
or budgeting for something, not budgeting for a project at all.
The other piece that concerns me about that is when we're budgeting for something and filling out all the grant paperwork in 2019, but we're not able to actually complete that project until 2023, the cost of that project has increased exponentially. And so that's the other piece that I have some concerns about.
And there's been a lot of discussion with the DOT on that. I'll use one of our projects, for example, in Brookings County, north of the golf course, that we have bid, we have awarded the project. That project was originally for about $720-some thousand. The bid came in about $736, and they're allowing for contingency. The DOT is. There is a certain amount of contingency that they are allowing. They are allowing the engineers at the time to increase that, engineer's estimate to match today's prices, and the DOT is allowing for contingency for that.
But we didn't budget for that
Correct.
initially.
Correct.
So
But the DOT is allowing contingency, so we don't have to eat that higher cost.
So the DOT is eating that in their match.
Correct.
Okay.
Is there a concern, Brian? We're seeing, as you said, the DOT hasn't finalized what they're going to do with the funds. I'm assuming a lot of it might go to bridges and roads, but do we have enough engineering to get these projects done in the DOT's time frame that you have to have them done? Bridge construction, bothers me, the large structures, that there are enough companies out there to bid this stuff, and if they don't have enough companies, is the price going to double because we can't?
Right. I know it's a concern. I know that also that the DOT is not participating in any of these projects any longer. It's all going to be consultant work for as far as design. And I know that makes the consultants happy, but it's a lot of change this year because of what happened with the DOT saying they are not going to have any part of the design except for approval. They're not going to have any inspection. That's all going to be consultant work. So prior to that, this year we had the Sinai Bridge done, and the DOT did the they did the inspection work on that. They'll come out and do the final pre-pour inspection, but aside from that, it's all on consultants. And I know there's concern.
One of the things that I think would be helpful is for us to say to Brian, when we have a dollar amount that's over this amount, we want it to be assigned if we don't get that project done that year. For example, when you look at this, at the list, where we've got 5.9 south of Volga, and we think our portion's going to be $11,000, we don't need to assign for $11,000. But when you look at the Bushnell one, the .9 north of Bushnell, where we've got $560,000, that we should assign for. And I do have a question on that. We have that same number on the project on the next page for 120,000. And why is that on there twice, and what do those two different amounts mean?
If you look on there, the project description, 0624141, bid ready review, ready for plans, that gains us points, whereas if we do the .9 north of Bushnell, we're doing a major replacement grant on that same bridge.
So we're doing two different things on that same bridge?
Correct.
That's why it's on there twice.
Correct. The second one, you'll see that there's a match of $1 million from the state, anticipated grant amount.
But again, and thank you, because I didn't quite understand why it was there twice. But we maybe need to talk about some guidance on which amounts need to be assigned. If it's over 100,000, not if it's less than 100,000, maybe it's 75,000. I don't know what that number is. But how do you know what all, because you get to the end of the year and you've got this budgeted, and then when it rolls over, like we said, into the road and bridge fund, we should assign it. If it's a big amount, we got to define big and put it into an assignment for that bridge so we can keep track. Is that what you're saying, Stacy?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
do you have an idea on a dollar amount?
I really don't. We don't, the problem with all of it too is we don't want to have 87 assigned lines within that fund either.
Because there's nothing guaranteeing that we're even going to be awarded this structure.
Right.
So if we budget for it and we don't even get awarded for it, now
Well, then we unassign it and rolls back into fund balance.
Right.
So that's happened before. You budgeted 6 and we got 3 or 4.
Right.
I mean, and that was part of the state requirements, was to make sure that we had funding available to be eligible to apply, basically.
Right.
And
So, question for 2023, all these projects for local funding, we have not been awarded any of these grants.
No.
Okay, and so is any of that local funding in your budget? I'm guessing no?
No, it's not, because why would I budget for it if I don't even know? I mean, okay, so using the preliminary engineering grants where Leanne brought up I do have budget line item in that to handle that. But these projects like say 2 or .9 north of Bushnell, the 560,000, if I'm awarded that in 23, we aren't going to expend that money most likely until 26. At that time, we know we can get budget to make that happen, to roll back into fund balance,
And we'd assign it.
and we'd assign it.
So when will we find out when we get these? When will they award these grants?
Typically, the replacement grants are awarded, or they are due January 1, and we find out about March every year.
So for the sake of everybody's clarity and understanding, the year listed is not the year we're intending to do the project. It's the year we're intending to apply for the project.
Correct.
Yeah. And we would know at the end of the year whether we needed to assign money or not.
Right.
Yes.
We're not doing these projects in 2023.
We are not doing these projects in 2023
Okay.
because we haven't even been awarded these projects.
But the small structures get done in 23.
That's the intention.
And that's in your budget.
Correct. I know it's confusing.
But you gotta have them in your 5-year.
We got to have it in your 5-year
Yep,
plan.
Yep.
Yep,
We don't have to budget for it.
right.
We got to have it in the 5-year plan.
Apply for it, budget for it next year.
Correct.
So what
Complete it
projects
23rd.
are there on here for 2023 that we actually expect to get done in 2023, other than the two small structures? Are we not doing any other bridge work in '23?
Yes, we are intending to do that. We're kind of in limbo on that yet too, because of having to juggle around now a structure that upon our bridge inspections went from legal loads to 6 ton. We have a structure north of Elkton on our County Road 27 where we're looking at a major failure, which was planned. I mean, we had gotten a grant for this. We've already been awarded a replacement grant for this. It was a little farther down on the list, but we may try to move that up a little farther. So I can't answer that yet either.
So right now, when you look at this, I just want to understand, the only thing this 5-year plan does in 2023, we're doing our applications, I get that. We're doing our 2 small structures, hopefully, and we're not doing any other bridge work in '23.
We already know we're doing one for sure.
And where's that one on here? I just want to see that one.
You don't wanna,
22. Would that
That
have
was
been
in 2022 because it's already been
our-
Okay.
yeah, it was
Awarded.
applied for.
awarded.
And how much is our share on that bridge? And is that in your budget for this year? That's what I want to know.
No,
Or for
it's not.
23.
It's coming out of
Fund balance.
fund balance.
Because it was budgeted last year.
And
But-
rough
Essentially.
idea of the-
Was it budgeted last year, though? That's what my question is. Do we remember that? Do we?
I believe so. I can't definitively answer that, but it was planned project. And it was awarded by the DOT, and we went through the process now with the bid and everything. So no, that's not in the 23, although we have to supplement that back into my budget. So it's not,
An amount assigned for that if it's over a certain dollar amount, so that we're
I
tracking.
think what we need to do is we need to sit down, Lori and Brian and I need to sit down and go back
I think where the
for a few
confusion-
years and look at what was budgeted,
Yep,
what rolled into fund balance, and what project was it for.
correct.
And if it was awarded, we assign it and put maybe even an estimated date that, or a year, I should say, that the project will probably come to fruition. And then we'd have a better idea. It makes more sense when you can actually see it as an assigned line for a given project. But I think we just need time to go back through and do that. I
'Cause
think that would clear things up for
The
people.
understanding which I was given direction by the commission, any of the money that happened with these big projects is they would be supplemented into my budget. They wouldn't actually physically be budgeted for until the year we know we are applying for them.
Yes, because we don't want to budget for them twice. They have to be budgeted for them at some point,
Correct.
and then if the project doesn't get done, it rolls into fund balance, and then we supplement it back in the year that we start having to expense it.
Other questions or comments before we open the public hearing? Thanks, Brian. All right, we'll open the public hearing related to the 5-year plan. Any comments from the listening public? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Anything further from the commission? We've got everybody signed in? Super. Okay. Hearing no further comments. Jenna, would you call the roll, please?
Bartley? Jensen?
aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Pierce?
Aye.
Boersma?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Super. And we'll go back to item 9, Commission Department Director's Report.
So the general fund surplus, Lori and I went back and worked together on that to review those and came up with what you see here in front of you. It is lower than average, than the averages tell us. At this time, I don't really have a good explanation as for why. I know that with moving money now, we have the commission projects that will raise that up. I think we'll see that go up for sure for September, and then October second half taxes are due, so it will go up again. You know, at this point, I think we'll just kind of keep an eye on things. It may, if we have to undesignate some funds to bring that percentage back up to where we're comfortable, we may have to do that. We'll see where we're at year end. We may not be able to designate funds like we have been able to do in previous years. So, any other questions with that? Okay.
I did have a question.
Sure.
Commissioner Pierce.
So we talked a little bit about this at the convention. The culvert money, is that showing up in our surplus?
No, it is not, because it is in its own fund. It's in its own separate fund.
And what is that fund called? When I looked at the financial stuff, I was
Rural
trying to figure-
Infrastructure Access
That's
Fund.
that one? Okay.
Yes.
And we got like 983,000 is what sticks in my mind, but I might not be right on that. What's the rest of the money in that fund from? Because there's over $1 million
There's,
in there.
because we were given about $73,000 last year to conduct the inventory, and we chose to not spend that money to conduct the inventory because we had the highway department staff do that. We kept that money in that fund, and now that makes it eligible to do actual projects again. So that's why it's a little over $1 million. So. The next thing is our contingency. I know we had some discussions about that as it relates to the commission projects line and what we were spending those dollars on. I did some calculations on some things, and you can see that there. Things that I know that we will actually need contingency for: the knowing pull pads, 75,850. Looking at chemical weed, I know Misty stepped out. That is closer. It's about $7,900 in the red right now when I looked at that last week. So anticipating if she has any more, I'm not sure. So I'm gonna just bump that up to 10. The $55,000 has already been paid for out of contingency for the Conservation District tractor. The salary increase, that 6% increase, or approximate 6% increase that we did at the adjustment in July. That's just an estimate only, that 210. Again, for weed, they're about 4,700 in the red on their repairs and maintenance line. I know they had those truck repairs, plus a containment, spill containment unit. So I'm guessing we might need about 5,500 there. Then again, that's kind of just rounding up and giving an estimate. The roof projects over at the sheriff's office and the jail, those are actual costs that you see there, along with the highway department roof. That's an actual cost. I think that's already been paid for, that 217. Just some other proposed things that we looked at for, just some other lines that I looked, just kind of really high level, kind of going through budgets right now. You can see some things that we looked at there. 6,000 for professional services and HR. Uniforms and equipment line is over in sheriff, but I don't know, that might, again, real high level estimates. WIC, we had kind of a goof up on the percentage that was taken out of WIC versus the community health budget, so we'll have to do a supplement there. When all of that's said and done, and I know you talked about not using commission projects money for these types of expenses, we're short. You can see kind of in the bottom right hand corner there, almost 18,000 if this plays out. What I would ask is for the commission to consider a couple different things. Commission projects fund, funds for maybe those the the salary increase. If we have salary in needs, contingency needs, use commission projects funds for that because of that increase in July, which was not funded or not budgeted for. Also, the roof projects I want to look at. I mean, with all of that, that's a pretty significant. We're looking at almost $400,000 in roof projects that I would ask that the commission consider either using commission project dollars for. There might be some opportunity with the sheriff's and the jail roof projects to take that out of the jail project contingency. That's remaining. If you recall with that project, the contingency is going to come back to us anyway, and there's some left. I would have to have that discussion with Chad Nelson, our project manager, to see. I think there's still enough contingency there to cover those costs. So that might be an option that would just come as a contingency change order from them then. And then we would pay it out of that jail projects fund. But if you go back, if we look back at this document, here in this column that starts out with the 1.2 just in the white, not highlighted, and you follow that down, I do have here in the yellow, I do have these roof projects accounted for. I have the highway project accounted for, some other estimates. I do have, we have some sheriff's unbudgeted, some short term there. Did I have the other 6%? Maybe that was kind of part of that too. The unbudgeted 2022 for sheriff staffing, and then the short term unbudgeted for 2022. That's up even more than what I had estimated. All of those items, and that does include the Elkton ambulance, and it does include more for, I believe, even Habitat was in there at the full 200,000. So, if you're looking at that, we're at 6.5 if we funded all of that. So that is still leaves 300,000 remaining. I'm not suggesting that we use commission project funds for everything that you see in that column necessarily, because I think we've had some of those discussions already, and some of those things may or may not happen here in the short term. But I'm kind of feeling out the commission, what your temperature is on using some of those commission projects funds for either the roof projects, some salaries, some things, because I don't think we'll have enough contingency to cover it.
Stacy, I think if I'm reading stuff right, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, in our 301 fund, don't we have $1.1 million? Why aren't we paying for roofs out of that?
We could do a supplemental budget to pay out of that. But the only way to get that to grow back again is by rolling year-end budgets into fund balance. So the next question is, at what level is the commission comfortable with having that fund balance or those reserves in that fund? If there was an emergency project that were to come up, do you want to spend down that fund balance, and at what level are you comfortable spending that down to?
And I really feel that we put money in that 301 fund for paying for things like a roof or, what we need for that kind of thing. That's why we've got that money set aside. And just getting it moved isn't that big of a deal, I don't think. But you're going to tell me if I'm wrong on that. But it just seems that, let me ask this differently. Do we have a rough idea how much the contingency amount is on the jail? Just a rough idea?
Likely somewhere between 5 and 10% of the total project construction cost. I think it was 5.
Yeah.
Or 7.
I can't recall right offhand. I'm not sure what's left. I think you're asking for what's left.
That's the piece that we would need to ask Chad Nelson for.
Because that may cover that.
I think the original project contingency was almost $1 million.
Right.
Or maybe a little over. But we've had several things that have come up that were unforeseen circumstances. So understanding what the project contingency remaining is was the suggestion that I made to Stacy, so that we're not using general fund contingency. Let's use the project contingency here at the end while we've got closeout dollars available, if possible.
And do we not have any idea on the insurance at the highway department yet, or we?
I'm not, I don't know for sure. I'd need to look into that to see exactly what they paid us back for that. But I think we did an improved roof, so I don't think we got that full, it was not close to that full amount back for insurance. And so we could definitely do a supplement back for that as well. And I think that would be an auto sub.
So there would be a big chunk there. I hate to see us use our commission project funds, okay, for things that don't fall within the guideline amounts that we talked about. And I mean, there's an argument on roofs. I get all of that. But that's why we have our county building fund, is to pay for this kind of expense.
And I tend to agree on the roof replacement pieces in particular. The place where I think the sheriff staffing, because we increased staff lines for correctional officers and increased their pay starting in July instead of January. I mean, some of those types of things, we have talked about that being out of ARPA funds for a long time. And it was just this last conversation that tune changed a little bit. So I think that's that's one piece of that, is just making sure that those things are covered, because that is exactly the intent of those ARPA funds.
And we talked about that at the time. The other thing that's on this list in yellow is we've got that $110,000 for a tabulator. And I did have this conversation with Jenna and Lori. I think we should take that off.
Yeah.
Because at the convention, we learned that tabulator that we're looking at is not certified by the state. We aren't going to be buying that anyway. So why set those monies aside for that at this point in time?
And I know when the roof projects were approved, it was discussed then using what is now commission projects money to do those projects. So that's why those came to the top when I was looking at ways to not spend down our actual general fund contingency.
I hate to have the commission projects fund get down to $300,000. That gives no flexibility for a future request that might come in. That's going to be open for a period of time, but I guess it's what everybody else, wants to do. But we have some flexibility on what we've got assigned for things, where if we had an emergency on a property, where we could unassign something else if we had to do that. Mm-hmm. But we've got 1.1 million set aside for building projects. A roof is a building project.
And I'm just looking for direction from the board. That's why I was giving you some options on what we could maybe do. And I agree with that. I mean, we've already paid for the highway roof out of the 301 fund. So if there's going to be some other expenses out of there, so that we'd probably be looking at doing a budget supplement in that 301 fund this year. I'm looking at that closer to year end though, so that I have a better idea. So we're only advertising for that once.
So the
if
1.1 million is after we paid that 217. I think
that's
actually
you're
when-
looking.
That's fund balance.
You're looking at fund balance.
Okay.
So if I'm hearing, there's some consensus that the additional sheriff staffing expense is appropriate for commission special projects funds, and that we would like to see how the jail and sheriff's department roof projects could come out of project contingency, and then
Revisit.
potentially the highway department roof come out of 301 fund balance if necessary. Is that a correct summary of what I've heard?
How I would look at it, yeah. We don't know what our jail contingency balance is gonna be.
No, we're going to find that out from Henry
we're
Carlson.
not-
How long, it'll be quite
There'll be some time before we have closeout on that, I would assume.
Shouldn't be. I mean, once they finish punch list stuff, that
Once it's
closed out and taken care of relatively quickly.
And our assignments, we have 3.5 million still.
Assigned in general fund for the jail, which we could easily unassign because we are not moving that money anymore. That dollar amount would bring our surplus
Back to where it
percentage
needs to be.
back up. And and it would be pretty easy for Lori and I to run those numbers and have some things for you at our next meeting with that too. So
But in another 6 weeks, our surplus is going to go way up when we collect taxes.
it will go up.
Anything else, Stacy?
Let's see. I need you to RSVP for the First District picnic because they are serving food up there. It's September 29th. Do you know, Mike?
I have already RSVP'd to them directly.
Okay.
I will not be there.
Anyone else planning to go? No? Okay, just Mike. All right, and then there was part of, let's see here. Down there was the Hope Builders Breakfast with Habitat for Humanity. That's coming up October 3rd. That is before our next meeting, so that is included. That invitation is included, and then just some other upcoming dates. This Saturday is the legislative forum put on by the chamber. It will be here in this room at 9 o'clock. The picnic that we've talked about, and then we have the county candidate forum for both commission candidates, and the sheriff's race will be on October 1st, again at 9 a.m. here in this room. On the breakfast I've talked about. Banner Associates has their tailgating event on October 8th when, as part of the SDSU USD football game. Offices are closed on October 10th for Native American Day. Make sure you do, again, reminder to have the Road and Bridge Tour on your calendars. I think what we're going to try to do is leave from the highway department right at 8 o'clock. So meet maybe just a little bit before that. I've got a beta bus lined up to take us. So plan on leaving at 8, and then our intent is to be back by or before noon from that. So Brian and I will work on a route and what he wants you all to see. Hobo Day is coming up October 29th, a little ways out, and then again the next 10 county meeting November 16th. I did hand out one other thing this morning from the South Dakota State Historical Society on a couple of archaeological sites in the county that they approved to nominate as properties to the National Register of Historic Places. So that information is there too. That's all I have unless you have additional questions for me.
You know what those archaeological sites are?
Michelle and I actually went on and tried to find those sites on the State Historical Society website, and we had no luck.
Were they the ones that were out by Oakwood?
That's the only thing we could think of, is maybe they were the Indian burial mound sites that are out at Oakwood.
Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that at the last meeting we had to approve the pieces for the board's meeting, for the Historical Society board meeting.
Okay.
And then it has to go from the approval from the board to the National Park Service. So I'm wondering if those all go together.
That was kind of our best guess too. So
I believe it's on state land though. So, okay. Moving on to item 10, State's Attorney's Office report.
Nothing to report.
There we go. Session items. We'll start with Commissioner Pierce.
So, 12th and 13th, I attended the South Dakota Association of County Commissioners meeting with most all of you out here. And it was a very interesting meeting. First of all, on the unemployment insurance resolution that got adopted, and that'll move forward, there was one session on counties filing for bankruptcy, which I thought was interesting. And what Chris had told me is that there's maybe 15 counties in South Dakota that are having some financial difficulties, and it asked for information on that. But the session itself, the presenters that were from a law firm in Pierre said counties can't file for bankruptcy. That's the long and the short after our whole seminar got done. So that's the way the law is in South Dakota. Then somebody said, what happens when we can't pay salaries? And there wasn't an answer for that. Okay. And then we talked about the tabulator, taking it out of our commission fund projects. The gentleman that had the vendor booth for the election machinery, he said that what other counties do when they have a humidity problem, which is what we've got, is they run a dehumidifier or a humidifier, I can't remember which one it is that we need it for, under or over, in the office where the machine is set up for a couple of days before the election, and that helps with the pages sticking together. The other thing he said, and I found this interesting, he said some people will put a dryer softener sheet in the bottom of the box, but you just got to be sure you don't run that through your tabulator because then you're really going to have problems. So those were a couple interesting conversations. On Brian and I spent a lot of time talking to Doug Kinnenberg regarding the DOT programs. And what Doug told us is that the feds, those are the federal programs that have gone from 9 to 24, right? Not state. And there are a lot of different programs out there now that we might qualify for some grant monies, but those are just coming about right now. And they had some information sheets, but not on all of them, just on a few of them. He did think that there was a community connections program that might be helpful on 214, possibly could be helpful over in Volga. He didn't know, but he said we should look at that. But it was that safety program, I think, for Volga that he thought we might have some chance at. And I think, as Brian and I talked, that Brian made the comment, not that I'm speaking for you, that maybe we want to have another one of our Zoom meetings with Doug Kinnenberg and have him explain some of that stuff to us. Maybe we'd like to know some more about those 24 programs and which ones might apply for Brookings County, and that we should be looking at grant opportunities. But somebody needs to take a lead on that and get that figured out. But there's a lot going on. It's just everybody's a little confused because the changes are just happening now. Did I say all that right? Then on September 14th, we had a domestic abuse shelter board meeting. As relates to JDAI, I did get an email from Jamie Gravitz. So somehow it circled back to him that I had made the comment at our last meeting that when we do our contract, we had a say in there that we're going to meet at least once a year. And he said, he did think that maybe we should have more contact so we know what's going on. And he's going to start, he does a regular report to the Minnehaha County Commission, and he said he'd just start sending those reports out to everybody. That would be nice. So that's all good stuff. And I think I heard Marty say that the DOC is going to be here tomorrow, and maybe they'll ask about the co-location stuff as relates to juveniles when the DOC is here tomorrow. Talk to them a little bit about our facility and how we qualify on that. And that would be all I have.
Commissioner Bartley.
September 6th was the planning and zoning meeting, as joint jurisdiction meeting with the city, an open public hearing. So anybody that's interested in that will somewhat be limited to the joint jurisdiction boundaries. September 11th to the 13th went to the SDAC convention, as did several commissioners. I served as a parliamentary person for them. They had one issue where somebody was going to reintroduce or try to introduce a resolution that required suspension of the rules. That failed. They did not suspend the rules. Let's see, what else did I do? That was basically about a CO2 pipeline, and that didn't make it past the suspension of the rules. Kristen Nelson with PUC gave an interesting presentation on siting opportunities and the process that the PUC goes through. Wind towers, energy towers, those types of things, and certain things that they don't control. So that was an interesting presentation. And there were several others, but I'll move on. Thank you.
Commissioner Jensen.
I also, well, let me back up. On the 8th, we did have a county weed tour of the southwest part of the county. During the tour, we had a meeting, discussed on possibly next year, just using 2,4-D, no graze on for a season to give the weeds kind of a different aspect and not to get the immunity built up with the graze on. Also, Misty is in the process of contacting townships, seeing if they're going to participate next year in the spray program to better help with budgeting and possibly the hiring of personnel, by spring. The fall convention was also sat in tried to do a couple different meetings and everybody else. I did attend a carrier enforcement meeting. Basically, they talked about load limits, what counties had to do to request Highway Patrol's assistance to enforce those load limits. Also, South Dakota LTAP had a meeting basically about the township culvert program, getting townships qualified and so they can secure the funding. The timeline for those townships was pretty narrow. I believe there was probably I think it was 10% of the townships in the whole state were able to get in by the timeline. So it's a work in progress, and I wasn't sure if we needed to have another fall meeting like we did before. It's just we need to get the word out that townships to get involved. On the 15th, I attended the Aurora Firemen's County Appreciation Night, well attended by personnel, and the meal was great. So, and that's all I have.
Commissioner Krogman.
Yeah, a little bit less happening here next week. SDACC convention on the 12th and the 13th, and it was interesting on the what Commissioner Jensen just talked about of townships. It was kind of a bad deal to give us about 3 weeks, and the townships 3 weeks to get that done, but kind of is what it is. So I think we need to make sure we can get all the townships ready for the next go around.
And I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a similar meeting like we had held out at the BCOAC. I think it was August of last year. I think we maybe look at doing that because their 5-year plans are due at the end of August. Maybe look at after planting is done, that June time frame, so that it gives them a couple months to work on that and get that done. Wouldn't be a bad idea to try to get them all together again.
And there's some townships that don't qualify because they don't have the levies and stuff like that. So if they decide they do want to do that, they're going to have to do that at their meeting in March of next year. So
Right.
I think it'd be good to get that communication.
I think we have 3 of those. I think we only have 3 townships in Brookings County, I believe. It's not very many that don't qualify based on that.
I think we need to make sure we communicate to them to that too, because the split is 80-20, which is very good. Our split for our project was 50-50, so the 80-20 split is a lot better for the townships. And so
Yeah, we had a couple of townships that were considering submitting applications for our program, and then kind of pulled those back, and now are planning, I believe, to submit. Those applications aren't due till the end of October, but they did get 5-year plans and plan to submit applications for funding for next year for these funds. So.
yeah, so all right, like I said, that was a good meeting we went to there. And then I was invited to the city's economic development master plan workshop on the 15th. And so that went well, and they're putting together their master plan for economic development, and I was invited to take part in that. Otherwise, that's all I have. We have a quarterly strategic planning meeting this afternoon at 3. Larry and I are planning to go to, and that's with all of the leaders of all the government entities, SDSU, Brookings Hospital, Brookings Utilities, city, county, and all that good stuff. So we'll be sharing our plans for what we're planning for next year. So that's all I have.
Super. September 8th, I was at the PPCC meeting that Bob talked about earlier. On 214th RFP for engineering. And then the 16th, the American Institute of Architects had their annual conference, and they had a county commission panel that I got to sit on with Jim Schmidt from Lincoln County and Gene Bender from Minnehaha County, just talking to the statewide association of architects about projects related to what counties actually do, because civil engineers know what counties do, but as it turns out, most architects don't. And then last night was a Brookings Behavioral Health and Wellness Board meeting. The new police chief was in attendance, and we reviewed some of the budget stuff there. Their annual budget runs from July to June, so just making sure that things are on track. I think we've talked about it. Mary Beth has mentioned it before in presentations, but their annual budget for 2023 is about 1.7 million, which compared to 4 years ago, double the staff, double the service, and so that continues to be the case. But we're on track for positive cash flows month over month, which is great. So that's what I got. Nothing else. Okay. With that, we'll proceed to item number 12, an executive session in accordance with 25-2 parentheses 1 for personnel. Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Sounds good. We will move into executive session after a brief 5-minute recess.